Last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. The U.S. Supreme Court issues a few major decisions this week, including a ruling that states that juveniles who are convicted of murder can no longer be convicted to prison for life without the possibility of parole. And, of course, the Obamacare mandate is upheld in a 5-4 decision. In California, a group of social service workers are planning to protest against Walmart, claiming that half of the people working for one of the wealthiest companies out there are not being paid a living wage as they are still eligible for welfare. In Washington, D.C., homeless parents who seek help are getting reported to the child protective industry instead. And in Hawaii, instead of helping, CPS agents are snatching kids from victims of domestic violence. In Delaware, parents voice their concerns when a House committee votes to broaden the state's child abuse laws, worrying that the bill will outlaw spanking and prevent parents from being able to administer discipline to their kids. In Georgia, school officials are growing paranoid over mandated reporter law time requirements after watching two ex-principals who are facing criminal charges for failing to report child abuse. In Florida, 3 government agencies are getting together to address the issue of children being over-medicated on powerful psychiatric drugs while in the state's foster care system. And the governor of Illinois wants to close down jails across the state and give the money that the state spends keeping them open to the child protective industry. In Mississippi, the New York-based child advocacy group Children's Rights gives them a poor grade for helping abused and neglected children. Casey Family Services decides to get out of the adoption and foster care business, leaving 7 northeastern states scrambling to figure out what to do with the kids they were contracted to care for. A group calling itself Right for Kids issues a ranking of all 50 states' foster care systems, claiming that Idaho has the best and Washington, D.C. has the worst child welfare systems in the country. And child welfare advocates from all around the world are meeting in Chicago this week for the second Russian-American Child Welfare Forum, and one of the major topics to be discussed is the abuse of Russian orphans by U.S. foster and adoptive parents. In China this week, the woman who was forced to undergo an abortion at 7 months pregnant says they're keeping pressure on her and she's being watched by guards at the hospital who do not allow her to leave. And now, amidst a public backlash for the incident, the Chinese government fires the officials responsible, and the government reviews their family planning enforcement policies. In Ireland, the Children's Ombudsman wants child welfare cases to be made public. In Scotland, conservatives are warning that legislation designed to protect children from sexual abuse is failing as the number of abused kids doubles in the past year. In New Zealand, the Social Development Minister is encouraging people who are abused as a result of the state being involved in their care to apply for compensation after a victim of rape faults CYF for placing her in the care of an uncle who is a convicted rapist. And India implements a new biometric system for keeping track of orphanage inmates. In Canada, a foster parent is spared a criminal record after whipping his 11-year-old foster daughter with a riding crop. In British Columbia, child protective workers are frustrated and overwhelmed by the province's new $182 million government computer system that they can't figure out. And 11 children died in Alberta's foster care system over the last year. In England this week, social workers are being criticized for actually considering sending a child they snatched to the Congo in Africa for an exorcism. The General Social Care Council reveals that black, male, or disabled social workers are more likely to end up facing conduct hearings. 2 British brothers win £100,000 in compensation money after being forced to live in 173 different foster homes in 13 years. And supervisors over at Lancashire Council are in hot water after leaving kids in limbo by allocating foster care cases to social workers who have left their jobs. A British MP wants the UK to say they're sorry for the practice of forced adoption back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but fails to mention anything about the forced adoption policies of the UK of today. There is a new inquiry looking into the British child protective industry's process of snatching children after it is revealed that the kids are being left behind in school. And British academics are now warning that British children are the unhappiest kids in the world. In entertainment news this week, Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes are getting divorced and she wants full custody of the kid. In Florida, 4 men are arrested for luring foster kids into prostitution, including one who was a Florida CPS agent who had fled to the Dominican Republic to escape prosecution. In New York, an employee of a social services agency that works with abused and neglected children was denied bail for a drunk driving hit-and-run accident that killed a 16-year-old girl. In West Virginia, a former CPS agent gets 4 years of home confinement for possession of child pornography. In Pennsylvania, a couple is charged with abusing foster kids in their care by tying their hands and feet together, sticking their heads in buckets of water, and forcing them to drink urine. In Wisconsin, a man gets 15 years for sexually abusing a foster kid. And in another Wisconsin case, a judge dismisses sexual assault charges against a former foster mother, but the case against her son continues. In Ohio, a judge rules that the mother of a kid who is snatched by CPS agents for being too fat can move to another state to be near him. In Colorado, a young mother snatches her kid back and is recaptured a short time later. In Connecticut, a grandmother who was ordered to hand over her grandkids to CPS agents hightails it and is captured a short time later in Rhode Island. In Minnesota, another mother tries to rescue her baby from the state's foster care system, but that kid is recaptured the next day. And in Virginia, police are looking for a foster kid from China who went missing back in 1998 when she was 12 years old. In Washington, the child protective industry is being sued for failing to protect 6 kids who were abused in the home of a family friend. In Kentucky, records reveal that CPS agents knew about a father's abusive past before a kid died. And finally, tonight in Ohio, a CPS agent investigates an adoptive placement with exotic pets and gets bit by a cougar. And since the owner of the cougar broke no laws in the incident, police have no idea how to handle the case. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.